this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Let's talk about RingRx, our latest sponsor. RingRx is a high-quality, HIPAA-compliant telephone, text, and fax communications platform. They provide seamless, cost-effective communications for behavioral therapists, medical practices, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. RingRx is designed for modern healthcare environments. They offer customizable features like a phone app, automated patient outreach, voicemail, after-hours call routing, and top-quality desk phones. Try RingRx for free today at ringrx.com. And if you sign up using the code CLIMB, you'll get 15% off your monthly bill forever. Conditions apply. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. I got to be part of a presentation that our guest today provided, and you are all in for a treat. So our focus today is going to be on how faith influences decisions as a group practice owner. Amy Dover, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Julia. It's great to be with you today. It's funny. I kind of came to group practice ownership in a strange way. I sort of kicking and screaming, and I started out. I've been a therapist a little over 20 years, and I started out working in a group home. Then I did some work with registered sex offenders. Actually, that's until we moved to Alabama, which is where I'm located. I was up in Virginia, and that was most of my clinical work until we moved down here. And I started working in-home and in-school counseling when we moved down here. That was really the only work I could find. I didn't want to do it, but it was really the only door that God opened for me. So I took the hint and I stepped through it, and I'm so glad that I did. And I learned a lot, and clinically and personally as well. And then I also made a lot of really great connections and built really great professional relationships with other people in the community, referral sources. And I was there for about 3 years. And then I always say that God just aligned the universe and the stars and started to open doors for me to open my own practice. Did not want to do it, had never been interested in having a private practice. I always liked the buffer of someone between me and all the really hard decisions. But the doors opened and I walked through them. And 3 months into being a solo practitioner, I was hiring my first therapist because I had so much work and I didn't want to say no to people. I didn't want to turn the work away. And I live in a small community in lower Alabama, and we're very underserved, and more therapists in the community now than there was almost 10 years ago, but we're still an underserved area. And again, I just didn't want to say no to referral sources and no to clients. And so the last 9 years I've been open, and I've built up to 15 therapists. We just hired our 15 therapists and 2 administrators. And yeah, life is busy. It's good.
So fill everyone in who was not a part of this presentation that I was lucky enough to be, the good, the bad, and the ugly of group practice. Summarize that for us. What have been some of the highest highs and some of the lowest lows, and how you would reflect on that experience 9 years later?
That is a great name, isn't it? When I did the presentation earlier this week for those who are in the Wise Practice community, I let you guys know that I'm a fan of Clint Eastwood and his spaghetti westerns. And when I was young, I grew up on a farm in North Carolina, and we didn't have cable coming down our road. Like, that's how far out in the country we lived. And so we had like maybe 8 channels on our TV. So we watched a lot of old westerns and old reruns. And I like Clint Eastwood. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to name the presentation, like, okay, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because in group practice, you have all of those things. And I'm definitely on the side of there's more good than bad and ugly. I enjoy being a group practice owner. I like working in community. I like walking out of my door and there being someone there to talk to. And I love staffing cases with people and problem solving and troubleshooting. I love all those things. And as a solo practitioner for those 3 months, I was already starting to feel lonely. So I do end up on the side of I'm a little biased. I'm a fan of group practice, but there are some bad and ugly parts of it, and some of the bad parts are really just different personality types that you have to learn how to really to manage. I don't even like to use that word, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
there's some people who they just operate a little differently, and they have some different perspectives on things, and just some different ways that they do things.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that can be a challenge. But I think that as therapists, I think we're good at doing that. Though we know how to listen, we know how to come at things from a different angle and approach things in a different way than your average non-therapist person. So that hasn't been too difficult, but some days are a little more taxing than others. And then different work ethics that you have to get used to with people who are coming on board. Any kind of employee issue that can be a challenge. Navigating difficulties in negotiations on fee splits and compensation and um, you know work schedules. And I give my people a lot of autonomy. I want them to be able to control their time, but some people, if you give them an inch, they want a mile, and managing that can be bad. And then some of the ugly is, sometimes people show us really the unlovely side of them, and that can be really hard. And dealing with that on a day-to-day basis. And I still see a small caseload of clients, and burnout is a very real thing, and that can be ugly. That can be an ugly part of practice ownership, and just feeling very lonely. Not a lot of people understand what it is to own a group private practice, and all of the nuances that go along with that, and just the stressors that can go along with that. And it's a privilege to do this work and be a group owner, but at the same time, it has very real sets of challenges that can be very hard. And burnout sets in, the loneliness can set in. And I saw this really great quote a few weeks ago that said, you don't have you don't have confidants in your group practice, you have allies. Which at the time I read it, it hit me right between the eyes. I needed to read it because I've had to learn lessons in just boundaries with the people who work with me, and there are just some things that I just can't talk to them about. But that is the truth. That just kind of adds to the loneliness at times. And that's why I'm very glad that I found the Wise Practice community and found you in there. But again, the financial instability can be an ugly reality of it too. And we're both insurance-based practices. And I mean, how difficult that is dealing with them. And fortunately, we've got really great systems around our finances and the way that we do reconciliations and handling audits and all that stuff. But it's a real thing that can get ugly for people. And just one of the realities that I always like to tell people up front when they ask me, hey, should I do this? Let me give you all the information, and then you make your informed decision about it.
Every single thing that you said resonated. So I appreciate you sharing that. And it is so important for people to really think it through, talk to people that have done it, a variety of people. And there are so many nuances to each group practice as well, depending on
Yes.
where you're located, the size that you are, insurance based versus private pay, virtual or in person. So, what are some of the things that have helped you to navigate through those bad and ugly times? It sounds like community for sure, finding those people that you can speak to that get it, that aren't necessarily your team members. What else?
Definitely those things. And I think too, my faith is huge. I'm very much, I let people know, even though we don't advertise ourselves as Christian counselors or faith-based counselors at my practice, people in the community know that that's a lens that we can practice through, but we don't have to either. We try to meet people where they are. But I am a faith-based practice owner, and my faith very much is what I lean on with that. And I shared with everyone earlier this week in my presentation that, pretty recently I've come out of what I consider to be a bit of a wilderness period. It was definitely a period of testing and trial, and really questioned, do I want to continue doing this? Is this something that I see myself doing over the next 2 to 3 years, or do I, what do I want to do here? I'm feeling
Mhm.
burned out. I'm feeling just unheard, and just I work all the time and no one seems to appreciate it, and I don't have anybody to talk to about it, and am I really doing the work that I feel that he has called me to do? But I really do believe that seasons like that refine us, and
Mhm.
leaning on our faith in those times can be what really brings us through it and builds our character, and creates more opportunities for us on the other side of that. And so I'm glad to say that I'm out of that period, but it's really it's really my faith, and then having a really strong support system, finding those confidants that I can talk to about this, and making sure that I carve out time in my schedule to go on retreats, to be in those Zoom meetings with other practice owners so that we can talk about these things, and being very intentional with my time so that I can go and be with my peers in this, other people who really get what I'm going through. And
Mhm.
because you can talk on a level with a practice owner that you can't with a therapist who doesn't own a practice, or someone in your own practice. And just the freedom that comes with that definitely helps mitigate challenges. And also just the communication, just being as clear and as effective as you can in your communication with your staff, and not shying away from conflict. I see a lot of practice owners doing that. And you always hear, well, I hate confrontation. Well, I don't know of anybody who really likes it, but and confrontation is such a big word. I
Mhm.
think when people say it or hear it, they think big and loud and ugly, but it can really be gentle and quiet and calm too, just like what we do with our clients.
Mhm.
And I really think that the clarity and addressing conflict as soon as you see it or as soon as you sense it is really important. And that helps to mitigate the bad and the uglies too.
I couldn't agree more. So it sounds like you and I were going through our period of struggle simultaneously. And now that we are in the same community and have made this connection, I hope that you can phone a friend. And if you ever want to hear from someone that can completely understand and often feels unappreciated herself, I'm your girl. But yeah, so the piece
Yes.
around the faith incorporated in your decision making. I want to hear more about this because having the weight of the world on our shoulders sometimes, being that decision maker, having that level of responsibility, liability, not only for your team, but for all the clients that your team are serving, that you're serving, for your community. How have you incorporated faith into that? And what have you seen as a result?
I love that question. So I knew I told you that I didn't necessarily want to be a practice owner. And so when I realized, okay, this is what I need to do. Sometimes it's so clearly laid out in front of you that you just can't ignore it and you can't explain it away. It's so clear that that's the path that you're supposed to follow. And so I decided that if I was going to do this, if I was going to do practice ownership, I was not going to be doing it alone, that I was going to allow God to guide me, and that I was going to take business decisions to Him. I do believe that God blesses ethical business. I think God likes business. I mean, you read the scriptures and it's in there. And I feel like and business brings people in closer connection and relationship. And I mean, we're relational beings. He
Mhm.
created us to be that way. So I knew though that when I opened, I did not want to be doing it alone. I needed to lean on him. And so like within the first 2 or 3 months after I opened, I have a pastor. Well, she's a friend from college. She's a pastor. I had her come in and bless my office. And I just wanted to kind of set that as the foundation. And again, I don't put myself out there as a Christian counselor, as a faith-based counselor, but clients don't necessarily need to know that I'm praying for them, and that, in my mind in therapy sessions, I may be saying, help me to say exactly what they need in this moment. If they need
Mhm.
kindness, help me to give it to them. If they need me to confront and challenge, give me the words to do that effectively. And so when I started to bring people on, and I started out as a contractor practice, but I was hiring people who I knew their value system aligned with mine,
Mhm.
and they shared my same belief system. And so I knew that I was hiring people who who shared my faith. But I do have people who have come on board who don't. And I still believe that God led them to me. I still believe that even if they don't have my same faith, we can work in conjunction with each other and still address the needs of our community and serve our community and do that good work. And
Mhm.
he's still going to bless all that. And I've certainly seen that. And I'll tell you, it's funny because when I was going through my wilderness period late last year and early this year, I went into a local florist to get a bouquet of flowers. My son, it was for his date for a dance they were going to. And when I was in there waiting for it, a lady behind the counter said, "Oh, are you Amy Dover with Dover Counseling?" And I said, "I am." And she said, "You probably hear that all the time." And actually, I don't. She said, "But I want to tell you just how important your practice has been to this community, but because before you opened, we didn't have anyone really besides the local mental health office. And I just can't tell you how great your practice has been." And Julia, like,
Wow.
I didn't know that lady, but she said that at such the right moment because
Mhm.
I had been questioning, like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. Like, Lord, I don't even know what you're doing here. I think I'm done. And honestly, I left the florist and got in my car and cried a little bit because it was just a wink. And I feel like he winked at me, and I needed it so much. But
Yeah.
it was also confirmation of, you are serving the community, Amy. Your team is giving the community something that they may not have otherwise, and keep doing keep doing the good work that you're doing.
Mm.
So that really helped. Even now, when I have bad days, I'm like, okay, let me remember that moment. That was a moment I want to keep in my mind.
Yes. Oh, I so appreciate you sharing that. I'm so glad that you had a moment like that when you did, and that you're really making that conscious effort to not forget. But I also see the connection here. So you have made this decision to add consulting into what you do. And I'm assuming that that has the potential to be transformative, where you're taking the things that you've learned, the struggles that you've been through, but also the wins and the positives that you've had, and enabling other people to go into that process more prepared, more confident, make sure that it's the right decision for them, cheer them on, but learn from some of the twists and turns that we've had. So tell us about this decision to start consulting.
Again, it's something that I had not really thought about doing, and I could talk about practice ownership all day long. And you only have so many people that you can talk to about it, right? You know that. And
Mm-hmm.
so the people in my life, and my husband and my kids and my family are, ugh, they just get so sick of hearing me talk about it. So I limit how much I talk about it, because and some of it they don't understand anyway. But um, yeah, I had the opportunity I got some consulting with Whitney Owens and Wise Practice Consulting last year, and I was 8 years in to practice ownership when I was like, yeah, I think I might need a consultant. And I've made so many decisions that, I mean, really, I think it was the grace of God that they turned out the way that they did, because they were not great. But despite that, we have continued to grow, and I have learned so much. And she actually helped me convert my practice from contractor to W-2. And when I met with her for the first time, I really wanted to get guidance on opening another location. I had my eye on another town about 45 minutes from here that's underserved, and I wanted to open up. And but I ended up not doing that, and converting the practice instead, which needed to happen. But and then kind of questioning do I want to open another location now? So it was a very interesting and really challenging time for me. And I very much needed it during that time of ownership. It came perfectly. And when we finished up, we talked about me joining her team. She was looking to expand, and I love the Wise Practice community. It's been wonderful for me, and it's filled that hole where I was feeling that loneliness. And I love meeting everyone, and it's so nice to be around therapists anyway, because anytime you spend time around therapists and you start talking about things, they immediately start to affirm you and validate, and then they immediately start to reframe. And it's just, they're wonderful. Therapists are wonderful people. But then you add in the faith based component, and that's really what I wanted. And so when she and I were talking about, you know, Amy, you've got a lot of experience and a lot of great things that you could share, and some do's and don'ts, and also, um, I really feel like this would be a good fit for you. And yeah, I'd never thought about it, but I love it. I love the idea of meeting with practice owners. I love doing it and helping them to figure out what kind of practice they want,
Mm.
really walking them through, this is how you be able to practice on a solid foundation. These are the things I did. Don't do those things. Do these things instead.
Yeah.
Or, this really worked. Oh, this is the route that you want to follow. This really worked. How does that fit for you and the practice idea that you have? And so I
Hmm.
I love walking practice owners through scaling. That's probably been my favorite thing, has been scaling the practice. I love doing that. I love the hiring process. I
Hmm.
love I love onboarding. We've got some really great systems around it. I love watching people come into the culture of my practice, and building it, and just wrapping it around them and having them become a part of our team. And so I really, and leadership, I've learned so much about my leadership style, and I love passing that along, and the resources I've come across and the things that I've learned. I love passing that along to other group owners. Um, and I've been very blessed to have good leaders in my career, which I don't think a lot of people can say that.
Hmm.
So again, a lot of, I'd like to think, experience and knowledge and wisdom of the last 9 years for sure, owning my own. And then I worked in other people's practices for the 7 years previous to that. So I've been in the private practice world for a long time. And then having the extra niche of faith based, I love it. I love doing it.
I am so excited about this new chapter for you. And as a fellow private practice consultant, don't you find that it lights you up in such a different way than providing counseling? And I agree with what you were saying, that I feel like it's such an incredible opportunity. And we're so fortunate to be in a position where people trust us in that way, and that we can help
Yes,
them learn from our experiences and see them grow. And it very oftentimes faster, and sometimes even more successful quicker, because they can avoid a lot of those pitfalls and have that support that it sounds like you and I may have been lacking.
absolutely. Yes.
I
And
love it.
just the accountability. I think the
Mhm.
accountability piece is so important too, because if I'm working with a consultant, then I know, first of all, there's the financial investment that goes along with that, and the energy that you're expending on that. And then I knew I was going to be held accountable to, like, my homework, what I was
Yeah.
supposed to be doing between those consultation sessions. And I really wanted to do well with that and use the time wisely. And you know, Whitney was my consultant, and she was great at just punching holes in my reality, annoyingly so at times. But I also want to be able to do that for people. Like, I hear what you're saying, and that's great,
Mhm.
but let's talk about the realities of business, because I
Right.
don't know that that is going to translate well to your marketplace. And so
Hmm.
let's be realistic and clear about when to do what and what is going to fit into your market reality and where you
Hmm.
want to take your business. So,
So you have something up and coming, and is it specifically for group practice owners? Tell us what we can expect for those that may be interested.
Yes. So starting in July of this year, I'm going to be running a mastermind group, and it's specifically for solo practitioners who are looking to scale to try and hire their first 1 to 2 therapists within the next 4 to 6 months. And it'll run from July to December. And we'll meet every other week live through Zoom, and we'll have hot seats. There'll be teachings. There's going to be accountability, all the things that go along with a mastermind group. But they'll have access to me between our Zoom meetings, and they'll have membership into the Wise Practice community and all the resources that are provided in that. And they can find that information on wisepracticeconsulting.com/mastermind. And those who are listening, who are already members of the Wise Practice community, get $100 off per month for that. So, which is a great deal. It's a good deal, because I wish I had known and understood the importance of masterminds again years ago. I had really great mentors, but nothing in terms of this is what scaling looks like. And you need to know as soon as possible if you want to hire someone as a contractor or a W-2. And you need to make sure that you have this in place so that you can build in a sustainable way, and so that you're not scrambling later to fix an issue that didn't have to be an issue. So the mastermind will walk people through all of that, the branding, the marketing, the best type of business entity to form, to scale, and hiring practices, and all that good stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting it started.
It sounds like an extremely worthwhile investment. So is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience, or a thought that you'd like to leave them with today?
Well, I am a big fan of, again, just group practice. And again, if you are interested in and know that you love working in community, then I encourage anyone listening to consider growing and scaling to a group practice. And as you said earlier when we were talking, that it does provide you the opportunity to have a wider impact on your community. And that's probably one of the things I love the most too. And I think I shared with you guys and earlier this week that over 1,000 counseling sessions a month happen in our building. And that's so amazing. Like, that's so many people getting services. And when I think about it, it just kind of blows my mind, especially considering where it was 9 years ago and it was just me. And I was trying to pump out 25 to 30 a week, and just, it's so much bigger than me. And it's such a privilege to be a part of that, and really just a partner with God in helping his hurting children. And so, yeah, anyone who's interested is interested in consulting or interested in the mastermind group, definitely head over to Wise Practice Consulting and check it out. I'd love to work with them.
Well, that definitely leaves us something to marinate on. I love those numbers, and just thinking of the extent and the ripple effect that can happen when you do expand, when you're ready for it, and it really is aligned, and when you have God there alongside you. So thank you so much for all that you shared today, and I'm really excited about what you have coming up.
Thank you for having me, Julia. I enjoyed it.
If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Napini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.